Hello, survivors. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it, and thank you in advance. Please leave the name of the city you're listening from in the comment section below. It helps us see our reach in the community. Let's start the story. Nothing prepares you for the moment when your world shatters. Not 10 years in the military. Not 6 years as a private military contractor. Not even growing up in the rough parts of Johannesburg. I'm Jackson Preston, former South African Special Forces, now running security operations for whoever pays the most. My friends call me JP. My team and I were deployed to Sierra Leone 4 months ago. Standard protection detail for a mining operation producing gold and diamonds in quantities that would make your eyes water. The client was Meridian Resources, and the job was simple. Keep thieves, rebels, and troublemakers away from the mine. 6 of us total. Me, Jackson, American ex-Delta. Dmitry, Russian with a background nobody asked about. Peter and Willem, both South Africans I'd worked with before. And Ellis, British SAS, new to the team but solid. We'd been running 12-hour shifts, alternating perimeter security, with the local guards hired by the company. Professional work, good pay, minimal complications. Until yesterday. It started with a call from the mine foreman, Abasi, his voice crackling through the radio at 0537 just before sunrise. "Mr. Preston, we have problem. Workers from Bmani village not arrived for morning shift." I was in our command post, a reinforced container unit near the main gate, reviewing night reports. Unusual for an entire village to no-show, especially in a region where mining jobs were prized. "How many missing?" I asked. 23 people, all from same village. Never happened before. I grabbed my gear, plate carrier, H&K G3 rifle, sidearm radio, and woke Dmitry and Ellis for a patrol. The mining company valued its local workforce. Missing employees meant potential PR problems, which meant unhappy clients. The drive to Bmani took 20 minutes. 6 kilometers along dirt roads, red dust billowing behind our armored land cruiser. The village sat in a shallow valley, surrounded by the lush green hills that defined Sierra Leone's interior. 30-some mud brick houses with corrugated metal roofs arranged in a rough semicircle around a central clearing. The moment we crested the final hill, I felt the wrongness. I'd visited dozens of villages across Africa. They hum with life. Children playing, women working, men gathering. Bmani was silent. Not abandoned silent, lived in silent. Cooking fires still smoldered with pots of rice over them. Clothes hung on lines. Doors stood open. "Where is everyone?" Ellis muttered, British accent tight with tension. We parked at the village edge and approached on foot. Weapons at low ready. Professional habit. The air felt thick, heavy with humidity and something else. The unmistakable copper stench of blood. Flies buzzed everywhere, an incessant drone that spoke of death. "Check the houses," I ordered. "Standard sweep. Stay in visual contact." We moved through the central clearing. Something skittered away from my boot. A chicken, unnervingly the only living thing we'd seen. The ground was disturbed in places, showing signs of struggle. Dark stains that I recognized immediately as dried blood. Willem's voice crackled through my earpiece. "Boss, you should see this." He stood by one of the larger homes, pointing inside. The interior was destroyed, furniture overturned, possessions scattered. The walls bore smeared handprints in rust brown. A child's doll lay in a corner, soaked through with blood. "Christ," Ellis whispered. "What happened here?" A sharp cry split the morning. Dmitry. Not pain. Surprise. We moved toward the sound, finding him at the village's edge staring into the trees. A body lay at his feet, a local man in mining company coveralls. His throat and abdomen had been opened, not cut, torn, as though animals had gotten to him. "Predators," Ellis suggested. "Leopards sometimes." Dmitry shook his head. "Bite marks are wrong shape. These are human teeth." The implications hung in the air between us. I'd seen ritual killings before, tribal conflicts that turned savage. But this was different. The violence felt chaotic, frenzied. Willem approached from another house. More bodies inside, same condition. Same. Looks like they attacked each other. That's when we heard it, rustling in the underbrush beyond the village. Multiple bodies moving. I signaled for silence, raising my rifle. From the tree line emerged a woman. I recognized her. She worked in the mine's processing facility. Mercy was her name, but something was deeply wrong. Her movements were strange, lacking coordination. Her coveralls drenched in blood. When she saw us, she looked at us like we were prey. Her eyes were clouded, but there was rage present. "Ma'am," I called out in English, then tried Creole, the local language. "Are you hurt? What happened here?" She released a sound from deep in her throat, a moan that raised the hair on my neck. Then she charged. Not ran, not approached. Charged like an animal. Her arms outstretched, face contorted in hunger. "Stop!" I shouted, training my weapon on her. "Stop!" She kept coming. Ellis fired a warning shot. No effect. I aimed center mass and squeezed the trigger. The impact threw her back. Blood blossoming across her chest. She stumbled, regained her footing, and kept coming. "Head!" Dimitri barked, already adjusting his aim. His shot caught her above the right eye, and she collapsed. For a moment, we stood frozen. I'd killed before, in combat, in self-defense. This felt different. Wrong. We'd just shot an unarmed woman. Then the trees erupted with movement. More villagers, dozens of them, all with that same vacant stare, that same hungry focus, all covered in blood, all moving with that relentless gait. "Fall back," I ordered. "Vehicle now." We retreated tactically, covering each other in practiced movements. But these weren't combatants we were facing. They didn't take cover, didn't react to gunfire, just kept coming, absorbing shots that should have dropped them, only staying down when their brains were destroyed. We reached the Land Cruiser and piled in, Ellis taking the wheel. As we pulled away, hands slapped against the windows, faces pressed against the glass. Hungry faces, dead faces. The drive back to the mine was tense, each of us processing what we'd seen. I radioed ahead, warning of the situation. Whatever had happened in Bmani, we couldn't risk it spreading. "Dimitri," I said finally, breaking the silence. "Your time in Siberia? You ever see anything like this?" The Russian's face was grim. "Once. Chemical spill near secret facility. People went mad. Attacked each other. But not like this." "We need to call for extraction," Willem said. "Get corporate to send helicopters." I considered our options as the mine came into view. Unlike Bmani, the compound remained orderly. Guards patrolled the perimeter. Workers moved between buildings. Our safety protocols had held, at least for now. Jackson and Peter met us at the gate, tension visible in their postures. "JP," Jackson approached as we exited the vehicle. "Just got word from corporate. Big Shot executive is on site for inspection. Name's Lawrence Hudson, VP of African Operations. He was scheduled to stay 3 days." "Not anymore," I replied, gesturing for the team to gather close. "Something's happened at Bmani. Something bad. I need all hands for immediate extraction of Hayes. Whatever's happening out there could spread here fast." As I briefed my team on what we'd encountered, I couldn't shake the feeling that our window of opportunity was already closing. Corporate executives weren't known for their cooperation in emergency situations, and whatever was afflicting the villagers didn't seem inclined to wait. Lawrence Hudson wasn't what I'd expected. Most corporate executives I'd protected over the years fit a certain mold: soft hands, expensive watches, and the arrogant belief that their wealth made them immortal. Hudson was different. Lean, weather-beaten face, eyes that evaluated everything. Former military, my instincts told me. The kind who climbed the corporate ladder but never really left the battlefield behind. "Mr. Preston," he greeted me in the mine's administrative building, a prefabricated structure that stood out among the industrial equipment. "I understand we have a situation." I laid out what we'd found at Bmani: the absence of villagers, the signs of violence, and our violent encounter with people who wouldn't stay down unless shot in the head. Hudson listened without interruption, his expression hardening. "How long until we can evacuate?" he asked, checking his watch. "I've requested a helicopter from Freetown, 2 hours minimum. But there's something else you should know." I hesitated. "Whatever this is, it's spreading fast. 3 more villages within 20 kilometers have gone silent since this morning." Hudson absorbed this with unsettling calm. "Then we need to move quickly. Get your team ready." I gathered my men near the main gate, distributing ammunition and establishing our evacuation plan. The mining compound covered nearly a square kilometer. Processing facilities, worker housing, equipment sheds, and the mine entrance itself. Approximately 200 personnel, most of them locals who lived in surrounding villages. "Peter, you and Willem secure the landing zone. Dimitri, Ellis gear up the convoy. We need a ground option if the chopper can't make it. Jackson, you're with me on VIP detail." "What about the workers?" Willem asked quietly. "Company protocol," I replied, knowing how it sounded. "Essential personnel only. If the chopper can make multiple trips," the implication hung in the air. We'd all worked enough corporate security jobs to know how this went. The suits got out first. Everyone else waited for resources that might never come. As we prepared for extraction, the satellite phone rang. I answered, expecting confirmation of our helicopter. Instead, the news sent ice through my veins. "JP, this is Control. Helicopter is grounded. Repeat, no extraction available. Situation has deteriorated throughout the region. Multiple outbreaks reported in Freetown, Monrovia, and Conakry. Government has collapsed. You're on your own." I stared at the phone as the connection died. No extraction, no support. The realization sank in. This wasn't just a local incident. Whatever was happening had spread to major cities. "Change of plans," I announced, gathering my team. "Extractions canceled. The situation is far worse than we thought. Major cities are compromised." "What about corporate resources?" Hudson asked, maintaining his composure despite the news. "Communications are breaking down everywhere. We're on our own." A commotion at the main gate interrupted us. Over the radio, Dimitri's voice crackled with tension. "JP, we've got incoming. Multiple individuals approaching. They're not moving right." I moved to the window. 20 or 30 figures converged on the compound from the tree line. Some dragged themselves forward with broken limbs. Others moved in rapid, irregular bursts. All shared the same dead-eyed stare. More infected. And they'd found us. "Defensive positions," I ordered. "Conserve ammunition, headshots only." The compound had been designed with security in mind. High fences, reinforced gates, clear lines of fire. Under normal circumstances, we could hold off a small army. But these weren't normal circumstances, and more infected were appearing by the minute, drawn by the sounds of the first group attacking our perimeter. "We can't stay here," Hudson said, watching the growing horde from the window. "Where's our fallback?" I considered our limited options. The helicopter was a no-go. Road vehicles would be vulnerable to ambush or breakdown. We needed something faster, something that could get us beyond the infected zone. Then I remembered something. During our initial security assessment months ago, we discovered a small airstrip about 15 kilometers south, a crude runway used by illegal miners and drug runners. There had been a single-engine plane there, old but functional. "I know a way out," I said, "but it's risky. There's an illegal mining operation to the south with an airstrip, if their plane is still there." "Can you fly?" Hudson asked. "Jackson can. He flew recon in Afghanistan." Hudson nodded decisively. "That's our play. How soon can we move?" "Now. But we need to hold these things back while we prepare." I organized our defenses, positioning our men along the perimeter fence. We had enough ammunition to thin out the approaching horde, but not indefinitely. Jackson and Dimitri would prepare our vehicles. 2 armored land cruisers that could get us to the airstrip. Willem and Peter would gather essential supplies. Ellis would coordinate with the local security team. "Remember," I instructed everyone, "aim for the head, clean shots. Make every round count." The infected reached our outer fence. Up close, the horror was magnified. Torn flesh hanging from exposed bone. Vacant eyes focused yet unseeing, jaws working mechanically as if already feeding. Some missing limbs, others with compound fractures jutting through skin, all ignoring injuries that would immobilize any living person. They slammed against the chain link, fingers curling through the mesh, their combined weight making the metal posts groan and bend. "Fire," I ordered. The coordinated response was devastating. Our team had military-grade weapons and the training to use them effectively. The front ranks of infected dropped with precise headshots, but for each one that fell, 2 more emerged from the surrounding jungle. "Hold the line," I commanded. "Buy us time." 10 minutes. 20. The fence was beginning to fail in places. Our ammunition reserves dwindled. Through my earpiece, Jackson confirmed the vehicles were ready. Willem and Peter had loaded critical supplies. We were as prepared as we'd ever be. I made the call. Fall back to the vehicles. Controlled retreat. We withdrew in stages, covering each other in practiced sequence. The local security team maintained the perimeter, their faces showing the strain of confronting these creatures that had once been their neighbors, friends, family. That's when I heard it, the distinctive sound of metal giving way. The main gate had collapsed under the weight of the infected, and they poured through the breach like water through a broken dam. "Move now," I shouted. "Everyone to the vehicles!" Chaos erupted. The infected swarmed through the compound, overwhelming the remaining security personnel. Workers fled in panic, some running straight into the arms of the infected. I saw a mechanic go down, 3 creatures tearing at his flesh as he screamed. Our team reached the waiting land cruisers. Hudson climbed into the lead vehicle with me, Jackson, and Ellis. Dimitri, Willem, and Peter took the second vehicle, along with 2 local guards who'd managed to retreat with us. "Go!" I ordered, and the vehicles lurched forward. Jackson drove with precision, navigating through the compound service road and out through a secondary exit. The infected gave chase, but their speed couldn't match our vehicles. Soon, we were tearing through the jungle on narrow dirt tracks, putting distance between us and the overrun mining compound. "What happened back there?" Hudson asked, his corporate calm finally showing cracks. "What are those things?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But they're spreading. Fast." The satellite phone buzzed. Hudson answered, putting it on speaker. A fragmented news broadcast crackled through the static. "Unprecedented global pandemic. Major cities fallen. Military establishing quarantine zones. Stay in your homes. Avoid all contact with infected individuals." "It's worldwide," Ellis whispered. "Same thing everywhere." The implications were staggering. This wasn't just a local outbreak. Not just Sierra Leone or even West Africa. The entire world was facing the same enemy we'd just fled. The journey to the airstrip took nearly an hour, navigating treacherous jungle paths. Twice we encountered groups of infected wandering the wilderness. Each time we drove past without engaging, no sense wasting ammunition or drawing attention. The second vehicle stayed close behind us, Dimitri's steady driving keeping pace. Through the radio, Willem reported all clear. So far, we were holding it together. The airstrip appeared ahead, a crude cleared runway cut from the jungle. Several ramshackle buildings stood at one end and, to my relief, a small plane was visible, a battered Cessna 206, old but intact. Less welcome was the sight of 3 technical vehicles, pickup trucks with mounted weapons, the universal signature of local militias in this region. "Hostiles," I murmured, spotting armed men patrolling the perimeter. "At least a dozen. Looks like Soro's crew. Rivals of our mining operation," Hudson explained to the others. "They've been fighting for territory for months." "We need that plane," I said, studying their positions through my binoculars. They hadn't spotted us yet. Our vehicles were still concealed by the tree line. "Options? Negotiate?" Ellis suggested. "With Soro's men?" Hudson scoffed. "They'd shoot us for our weapons, then feed us to those things." I analyzed the situation with the cold calculation my training had instilled. "We have tactical advantage. They don't know we're here. 2 approaches, pincer movement. Dimitri, take the second vehicle around to the eastern edge. Wait for my signal." We split into 2 teams, positioning ourselves on opposite sides of the airstrip. The militia fighters moved carelessly, clearly unaware of both our presence and the greater threat spreading through the region. Their overconfidence would cost them. "On my mark," I whispered into the radio. 3, 2, 1. Our synchronized attack caught them completely unprepared. The first 4 went down before they could even raise their weapons. The others scrambled for cover, returning fire wildly. They had numbers, but we had training, precise shots versus panicked spraying. The firefight lasted less than 3 minutes. When silence fell, only 2 militia fighters remained, hands raised in surrender. I approached them cautiously, weapon-trained center mass. "The plane," I said simply. "Is it operational?" One nodded nervously. "Pilot went to Kabbalah yesterday, should return tomorrow." "We're not waiting for tomorrow," I replied. "Jackson, check the aircraft." While Jackson examined the plane, we secured the area and gathered what supplies we could find. The militia camp yielded ammunition, fuel, and some medical supplies, all valuable in our new reality. Jackson's assessment wasn't entirely positive. Fuel's minimal. Engine's been neglected. Control surfaces are intact, but the instruments are unreliable. He wiped grease from his hands. "She'll fly, but she needs work before takeoff, and she won't win any beauty contests." "How long?" I asked. "An hour minimum. Need to flush the fuel lines, check the plugs, run a proper pre-flight." "Military base at Lungi," I suggested. "If anywhere secured a perimeter, it would be there." Jackson nodded. "About 200 kilometers northeast. We'd make it on a full tank, but with what we've got." He shrugged. "It'll be close." Hudson had been examining a shortwave radio found in one of the buildings. "I'm picking up military transmissions. Fragmented, but clear enough. They're establishing safe zones at major military installations. Lungi is one of them." The plan was set. Jackson would prep the plane for immediate departure. The rest of us would secure the perimeter. Once airborne, we'd make for Lungi and pray the military hadn't shoot-on-sight orders for unidentified aircraft. We'd been at the airstrip for perhaps 15 minutes when Willem, on lookout duty, gave the alarm. Movement in the trees, multiple contacts. Through my binoculars, I could see them, infected emerging from the jungle edge. Dozens of them, moving with that terrible single-minded purpose. They'd followed us, or perhaps been drawn by the noise of our arrival. "How much longer?" I asked Jackson. 10 minutes minimum, need to finish the pre-flight checks." "You've got 5, I told him. "Everyone else defensive positions. Conserve ammunition, make every shot count." We formed a perimeter around the plane, using the vehicles for cover. The infected approached steadily, their numbers growing as more emerged from the trees. No rush, no tactical movement, just relentless advance. 200 meters, Ellis reported. "Still coming." "Hold fire until they're within effective range," I ordered. 100 meters or less. The minutes stretched painfully. Jackson worked frantically on the plane, checking systems, preparing for emergency takeoff. The infected closed the distance, 180 meters, 150, 120. "Ready to engage," Dmitri announced, rifle braced against the Land Cruiser's hood. "Wait," I commanded. "Not yet." The infected reached the 100-meter mark. I gave the order. "Fire!" Controlled bursts cut through the front ranks of infected. They fell in waves, bodies dropping to the dusty ground. But more kept coming, stepping over their fallen comrades without hesitation. 75 rounds left, Willem reported after a minute of sustained fire. "Place them wisely," I replied. The infected had closed to 50 meters now. We maintained discipline, each shot deliberate and precise. The professionals in our group showed their training. Calm breathing, smooth trigger control, no wasted rounds. But our ammunition reserves dwindled rapidly and the ravenous mass continued to grow. "Fuel lines are clear," Jackson called from beneath the plane's cowling. "But the starboard magneto is failing. Need to bypass it." While Jackson worked, the rest of us established a defensive perimeter. Hudson surprised me by demonstrating competent weapon handling, further evidence of his military background. The 2 captured militia fighters worked alongside us, their survival instinct overriding any lingering hostility. "How much longer?" I called to Jackson. 30 minutes, he replied, his upper body disappearing into the engine compartment. Oil pressure's fluctuating, can't take off without stabilizing it. Ellis, who'd been monitoring the tree line, suddenly tensed. Movement, northwest corner. I raised my binoculars. A group of infected stumbled from the jungle's edge. Former villagers judging by their clothing, their bodies in various states of decay. The gunfire from our skirmish with the militia must have drawn them. "Hold positions," I ordered. "They're still beyond effective range." Jackson continued his mechanical surgery, oblivious to the approaching threat. The plane's inner workings were spread across a tarp beside him. Filters, hoses, tools arranged in mechanics' precision. His hands moved with calm expertise, disconnecting and reconnecting components with practiced efficiency. "Need more time," he muttered, reaching deep into the engine housing. Fuel pumps clogged with sediment, probably been sitting for weeks. The infected continued their approach, their numbers growing as more emerged from different sections of the tree line. I counted at least 40, then 60, then gave up counting. They were being drawn to us from all directions. "Jackson," I called. "Status?" "Almost there. Control surfaces are responding. Fuel flow stabilized." He closed the engine cowling. "Need to run the pre-flight sequence, 10 more minutes." Just then, a larger group of infected burst from the western tree line, at least 60 more, moving in an uneven wave. They must have circled around while the first group held our attention. "Western flank," Ellis shouted. "They're surrounding us." I made a split-second decision. "Peter, Willem, Ellis, hold the eastern approach. Dimitri, with me on the western flank. We need 5 more minutes." Dimitri and I repositioned, focusing our fire on the new threat. The infected closed rapidly, crossing the open ground with unnerving speed. I dropped 5 with careful headshots, Dimitri another 7. But there were too many. "Jackson," I shouted. "Status." "Almost there." The first infected reached our position. Dimitri switched to his sidearm, firing at point-blank range. I used my combat knife when one got too close, driving the blade through its eye socket. The creature dropped, only to be replaced by 2 more. "Fall back to the plane," I ordered. Everyone fall back. We retreated step by step, maintaining fire as we moved. The plane's propeller had started spinning, the engine coughing to life. Jackson was in the pilot's seat, gesturing frantically for us to board. I did another head count. Hudson was already climbing aboard, Ellis covering him. Willem and Peter were falling back in coordinated movements. Dimitri stood his ground, providing covering fire. Then I saw it. A group of infected had broken through our lines, circling behind Peter and Willem. They didn't see the threat, focused as they were on the front. "Behind you!" I shouted. Already running toward them. Willem turned just as the infected reached him. He fired his last rounds, dropping 2, but a third tackled him to the ground. Its teeth sank into his neck before I could reach them. Peter tried to help, but more infected swarmed him. He disappeared beneath a pile of thrashing bodies, his screams cutting off abruptly. "They're gone!" Ellis shouted. "JP, they're gone!" I knew he was right. My training took over, overriding the impulse to attempt a rescue. "Fall back! Final positions!" We formed a last defensive line at the plane's boarding stairs. Jackson had the engine at full power now, the aircraft vibrating with readiness. Ellis and Dimitri boarded, helping Hudson secure himself. "Get on!" I shouted to the 2 local guards who'd stayed with us. One made it to the stairs. The other was halfway there when an infected caught him, pulling him down into the dust. I fired my last rounds, clearing a path to the plane. The remaining guards scrambled aboard. I followed, pulling the door closed behind me just as infected hands slapped against the fuselage. "Go!" I ordered Jackson. "Go now!" The plane lurched forward, gathering speed as it rolled down the crude runway. Infected threw themselves at the aircraft, some managing to grasp the landing gear or wings. The plane shuddered under their weight, struggling to gain sufficient speed. "We're too heavy," Jackson shouted over the engine's roar. I made another hard decision. "Dump everything that's not essential, now!" We threw out supply bags, equipment cases, anything we could get our hands on. The plane gradually picked up speed, but the end of the runway was approaching fast. "Brace," Jackson called. We lifted off seconds before reaching the tree line, the undercarriage scraping the tops of the jungle canopy. For a terrifying moment, the plane dropped, then caught an updraft and began to climb. Below us, the airstrip grew smaller, the mass of infected reduced to tiny dark specks. We'd escaped, but at a terrible cost. Willem and Peter were gone. Two solid operators, friends, dead in seconds. I surveyed what remained of our team. Dmitri sat silent. Blood spattered across his face. Ellis tended to a cut on his arm. Hudson stared out the window, his corporate facade completely gone. The local guard huddled in the back, still in shock. Jackson focused on flying, his hands steady despite everything. "Northeast," I told him. "Lungi military base." As we gained altitude, the scale of the catastrophe below became apparent. Entire villages burned, roads clogged with abandoned vehicles, and everywhere, groups of infected wandered the countryside, spreading like a virus across the land. Hudson had found a radio in the plane and was scanning frequencies. Most returned only static, but occasionally voices broke through. Frantic calls for help, military communications, automated emergency broadcasts. The pattern was the same everywhere. Major population centers overrun, governments collapsed or in disarray, military forces falling back to defensible positions. "It's not just us," Hudson said quietly. "It's everywhere. Asia, Europe, the Americas. The same pattern, the same chaos." What could cause something like this? Ellis wondered. Some kind of disease? Does it matter? Dmitri spoke for the first time since takeoff. Whatever it is, it's already won. I didn't share his fatalism, but I understood it. In the space of a single day, the world as we knew it had ended. Our mission had shifted from protecting a corporate executive to basic survival, and 2 good men had died because I'd failed to anticipate the infected's movements. The plane shuddered, the engine making a concerning sound. Jackson frowned at the instruments. "Fuel line issue? I can keep her in the air, but I need to throttle back. Will take longer to reach Lungi." "How much longer?" I asked. "An hour, maybe more." I nodded, settling in for the flight. Below us, Sierra Leone continued to burn, columns of smoke rising from towns and villages. The mining compound where we'd started the day was likely completely overrun by now. The virus, if that's what it was, had spread faster than anyone could have predicted. "This changes everything," Hudson said, almost to himself. The entire global order collapsed in hours. "What matters now is surviving," I replied. "Finding secure shelter, gathering resources, connecting with other survivors." "If there are any," Dmitri muttered. The plane hit turbulence, dropping briefly before Jackson stabilized it. The engine coughed again, the sound more pronounced. "Problem?" I asked him. "Might be fuel contamination. She's running rough." "Will we make it to Lungi?" Jackson's expression was grim. "Maybe, but we might need to put down sooner if the engine deteriorates." I studied the landscape below, looking for potential landing sites. The terrain was mostly dense jungle, broken occasionally by small clearings or villages. None looked particularly promising, especially given what now roamed the countryside. "Keep her in the air as long as possible," I told Jackson. "Lungi is our best shot." The flight was a nightmare of mechanical failures and desperate prayers. Below us, the landscape revealed the extent of the catastrophe. Burning villages, abandoned vehicles creating metallic graveyards on highways, occasional clusters of infected drawn to any sign of life or movement. The plane's engine protested continuously, each cough and sputter a reminder of our precarious situation. Hudson monitored the radio, scanning frequencies. Through bursts of static came fragments of a world in collapse. Emergency broadcasts, military commands, desperate pleas for help. The pattern was unmistakable and global. Whatever this infection was, it had spread worldwide with devastating speed. "There," Ellis pointed ahead. "That's got to be it." Lungi International Airport had been transformed into a military fortress. Even from our altitude, we could see the defensive perimeter, Barriers, checkpoints, vehicles arranged in tactical formations. Armed personnel moved with purpose, a pocket of order in a dissolving world. "That's it," I confirmed. "Lungi base." The radio crackled again, this time addressing us directly. "Unidentified aircraft approaching from southwest. This is Lungi military control. Identify yourself immediately, or you will be considered hostile." Jackson keyed the microphone. "Lungi control, this is civilian aircraft November 637 Alpha. We have 5 survivors aboard, requesting emergency landing clearance. Engine failing, repeat, engine failing." A pause then. "November 637 Alpha. Transmit authentication code or be turned away." I took the microphone. "Lungi control. This is Jackson Preston, former South African Special Forces, commanding security detail for Meridian Resources. We have no authentication code. 5 survivors requesting emergency landing on humanitarian grounds." Another pause, longer this time. The engine coughed violently, the plane dropping several hundred feet before Jackson could stabilize it. "November 637 Alpha. You are cleared for emergency landing on runway 29er. Be advised, all arrivals are subject to strict medical screening. Any sign of infection will result in immediate quarantine procedures." "Understood, Lungi Control," I replied. "We're clean." Jackson adjusted our approach. But the plane was struggling badly now. Black smoke trailed from the engine, and the controls were becoming sluggish. "I don't think we're going to make it to the runway," he said quietly. "Prepare for rough landing." We were perhaps 5 kilometers from the base when the engine finally gave out, sputtering one last time before going silent. The sudden quiet was almost more terrifying than the mechanical protests that had preceded it. "Gliding in," Jackson announced, his voice unnaturally calm. "Everyone brace for impact." The plane descended rapidly, Jackson fighting the controls to maintain a semblance of direction. The ground rushed up to meet us, not the smooth tarmac of the military runway, but the rough scrubland that surrounded the base. "Brace!" Jackson shouted. The impact was violent, the plane bouncing once, twice, then skidding sideways as the landing gear collapsed. Metal screamed against earth as we carved a path through the dirt. Something struck my head, and darkness engulfed me. I came to minutes later, the taste of blood in my mouth. Smoke filled the cabin. Someone was pulling at my arms. Dimitri, his face streaked with fresh blood. "Move," he shouted. "Fuel leak." My training kicked in. I struggled to my feet, helping Dimitri extract the others. Ellis was conscious, helping the dazed local guard. Hudson was bleeding from a gash on his forehead, but moving under his own power. "Jackson?" I asked. Dimitri's expression told me everything. I glanced toward the cockpit, now crumpled against the engine block. Jackson hadn't had a chance. We staggered away from the wreckage just as flames erupted from the fuel tanks. The heat washed over us as we collapsed on the ground, watching our escape route burn. "Now what?" Ellis asked, his voice raw. I looked toward Lungi base, still a few kilometers away. Military vehicles were already approaching our crash site, dust clouds rising behind them. "Now we hope they're still taking in survivors," I replied. As the vehicles drew closer, I reflected on how much had changed in a single day. This morning, I'd been a mercenary protecting corporate interests. Now I was a refugee, grateful for the approaching military that might offer sanctuary. The world had been turned upside down, familiar structures swept away in hours. The lead vehicle stopped 30 meters away, soldiers deploying in tactical formation. Their weapons were raised, their approach cautious. "Hands where we can see them!" a voice commanded through a megaphone. "Anyone infected will be shot immediately!" I raised my hands, the others following suit. Survival now meant following new rules in a world gone mad. The chaos behind us, the mining compound, the infection, our fallen team members, all seemed distant compared to the immediate challenge of convincing these soldiers we weren't a threat. "Medical team forward," the commander ordered. "Full containment protocols." Personnel in hazmat suits approached, carrying screening equipment, the new reality of our world, the new normal. As they began their inspection procedures, I caught Hudson's eye. The corporate executive, The VIP I'd been assigned to protect looked as haunted and exhausted as the rest of us. In this new world, titles meant nothing. We were all just survivors now. "What happens after this?" he asked quietly. "We adapt," I told him. "It's what humans do." Behind us, the plane continued to burn, sending black smoke into the afternoon sky. Another marker of civilization's collapse, visible for miles around. Another beacon drawing the infected toward us. The countdown to sanctuary or rejection had begun.